Hi folks, this is Tim Garman for SIT on NZDP101, and I'm going to demonstrate the blending modes. And to do this I have the image open from week 9, that's the fire truck image, and in that task you'll be asked to do lots of additional things. I'm just going to focus on how blending modes work. So over on the left in the tools palette I have the brush tool selected. And I've got a foreground colour. It doesn't matter what colour you use, but I've got yellow. You could use any colour. And I'm just going to draw directly on the image. Now, just to point out that that is destructive because it's actually changing the image, but we'll deal with the non-destructive approach shortly. Now, when I do that, up in the options strip, you'll notice that there are some modes available. The default is normal, and also over in the layers palette on the right you'll notice that there's the same word normal although greyed out there. So I'll come to that a bit later on, but these blending modes do appear in a few different places in Photoshop. So what happens if we choose a different blending mode? Well, let's choose multiply and do the same thing. Well, now we see that suddenly what we're drawing is actually transparent, and it's interacting with the colours that it's going across. And in fact, if I choose a different blending mode, let's come down to colour, we'll get a different effect. And that's true of every one of those blending modes. It will give you a different effect. Now, some of them won't have any effect because that is dictated by the colour you choose and the image you're working over, and also to some extent what you've got in your layer structure as well. But just to make the point that what I've done there is destructive because it's straight onto the background image. That's not what we want to do, so I'm going to undo that. I'll put my colour back to normal in the blending mode. And because you're going to be working with a black and white image, let's first of all go to the adjustment layer and create a black and white adjustment layer. So now we see that our image is black and white, and we have some adjustments we can make to those tones if we want to. Just to point out that it hasn't turned the image black and white because I can switch off that adjustment layer and see that the image is still in colour, but it has put a filter over it. I'm going to create another layer, which I can either click the plus button or go to new layer in the layer palette menu. So we've got an additional layer at the top of our layer stack, and now we notice that our blending modes here have become accessible. So with the same paintbrush tool selected and the same color, again, if I go across my image with normal selected, the color goes straight across the image, but of course we have the option to switch it off because we're on a different layer. We're not painting on the actual image. Also, what we've painted is in color because it's above the black and white filter, so it's not affected by it. If we drag this below that filter, we see it is affected by it. But we can also change the blending mode here. So if we go to the same blending modes we used previously, that again picks up the background color. So this layer is interacting with the colors of the background. We can choose a different color again. Just off your screen, I think that says color. And you can actually go through each of those and see what effects they give you. You see each one gives a different effect. Most of them do something. Some don't do anything. So on that particular task, it will be up to you to choose the blending mode that gives you the result that you want. It's worth pointing out that any blending mode affects the whole of the layer. So everything on that layer will be affected by that blending mode. If you want to create something with a different blending mode, you have to create another layer to do that. So let's just get rid of what we've done there. So how might you go about colouring the truck for week 9? Well, the first thing to do is think about how you might select an area to colour. So if you've got a number of layers, remember to select the background layer, because you'll want to select areas on the actual image. You could use the magic wand tool. I'm going to undo that and suggest that in this instance I'm going to use the quick selection tool to select this plank at the side of the truck. Now it's got more than I want, so I'm going to hold down the Option key as I just trim bits off of the selection. And when I do this, Photoshop begins to understand what it is I want to select. And it might actually help you to work with the contrast settings to just make some of these outlines a bit clearer. So with that area selected, because I want to work non-destructively, I'm going to select the layer I've created. So now I can work on a different layer other than the background. And I'm going to choose a different color because I think that board on the truck might be more of a brown color, and I'm going to come over here somewhere, a bit of a dull woody color. So that's my color in the foreground. I'm going to go to Edit and Fill. Now you notice when I go to Fill, here's another area where we've got blending modes, so we can use those modes there as well. I'm just going to go OK, and I've filled that area with that color, but at the moment I've got the default of normal. Now I could try out all of these and see which ones give me an effect that I like. Some of them don't do anything, but multiply will. If I choose multiply, I may want to reduce the opacity to give a more subtle effect. Or I might want to try a different mode. And I thought, looking at this earlier, that color burn worked quite well. So I'm going to choose color burn, and I'm just going to bring down the opacity slightly. It seems to pick up the texture from the original print quite well. So let's deselect that. And let's just recenter. And just to switch that layer on and off, you can see the effect. Now that's one approach in terms of selecting. You may want to use the magic wand tool. You may want to create a mask, and we'll be looking at masks later in the paper. Or you may even want to use the pen tool to draw around that shape and then turn the path into a selection. However you do it, this is a good way to structure your layers in the layer palette, and also to work non-destructively.